Hello, good evening, and welcome to. Okay, I need to pause this one because it's giving me feedback, and I don't want that. Um, Hello, good evening. You're all welcome to this evening's webinar. My name is Rebecca, and I am the lead travel consultant at Golden Knights Travel and Tours Limited. Thank you very much for joining. Could you please put in the chat box where you are watching from? Just put it in the chat box. Where are you watching from? Are you watching from Nigeria or outside Nigeria? Where are you watching from? We'd like to know where you're watching from. Put it in the chat box before we go on. I want to welcome everyone. Yes, thank you, Oyeyinka Ibitoye. Where in Nigeria? I know most people are in Nigeria. Where in Nigeria? Where in Nigeria? Where are you watching from in Nigeria? Fumi Akinola, thank you for joining. Where are you watching from in Nigeria? Which part of Nigeria are you in? Which part of Nigeria? Ibadan. Ile Oluyole. Thank you very much for joining Ibadan. Thank you very much for joining. Okay, without wasting too much of your time, we had a little bit of each. I initially thought we're going to do a 6 p.m. webinar, but it's all well and good. We're just going to quickly run through it. I want to believe that everyone who is joining in this webinar everyone joining has a plan to relocate to Canada with their families, because that is what this webinar is all about. You're welcome, Mary. You're welcome. Thank you for joining in. Yes, you can share the live with your friends. You can share the live with your friends. If you have friends who may be interested in relocating to Canada, you may share the live with them. Let them join in as we go along. So, can you let me know if you can see my screen? I just want to be sure. Can you see my screen? What I have on my screen says your pathway to Canada PR. Everything you need to know to get started in 2025. Can you see my screen? Please put it in the chat box. I'm going to be disturbing you a lot. We're putting in, yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, amazing. So we're just going to quickly run through it. I'm sorry if my lighting is looking poor because I planned a 6 o'clock meeting. Yeah, they seem to have run out of battery, but that's not a problem. I'm sure you can see my pretty face. So we'll just go ahead. Yeah, so you want to go to Canada. Do you want to put it in the chat box what you have heard about Canada? Why do you want to go to Canada? Just put it in the chat box. Don't worry. You don't need to share any sensitive information. So just put it in the chat. But what have you heard about Canada and why do you want to go to Canada? Canada is a dream place of so many people, and many people have different reasons. Yes, so put it in the chat box. Why do you want to go to Canada and what have you heard about Canada? While you are doing that, I'm going to be telling you what you're going to gain from this webinar. So you're going to understand the routes to relocate to Canada, and you will also find out if you are eligible. The truth is that not everybody is eligible to relocate to Canada. There are some eligibility criteria that will determine if you can relocate to Canada. You're also going to see, I'll show you the step-by-step process of how to apply for Canada PR. You'll get clarity on all documentation, the cost and timelines involved, and you will also find out how we at Golden Heights Travel and Tours can help you secure your dream move to Canada. Okay. I was expecting to see the reason why some of us want to go to Canada or what we've heard. Oh, okay. Yes, Canada is in need of skilled immigrants. Exactly. So if you are skilled, if you are very good at what you do, and if your skill is in demand, don't worry, we are going to get to all that. Thank you for that, Oyinka. Thank you for that. Yes, so these are the objectives of this evening's webinar. Now, what are the key facts that you should know as prospective immigrants? What are the key facts? Okay, first of all, let's talk about the location and geography of Canada. Canada is in the northern part of America, and that's the continent, and it is bordered by USA to the south. I'm going to show you the map in a minute. So it is bordered by USA to the south, and by Atlantic Ocean to the east, and by Pacific Ocean to the west, and by Arctic Ocean to the north. Canada is the second largest in the world by landmass. They have a massive land space, and Canada is rich in lakes. They are rich in mountains, and Canada has a lot of natural resources. I know they have a lot of gold, they have a lot of oil. Their oceans are filled with different amazing aquatic animals. Yes, so Canada is a very rich country, and that is why they keep needing people, because the resources they have is more than enough for the people there. And guess what? How many people are in Canada? Just about 40 million. As at my research of under a week now, it's not up to a week that I did this research, Canada still has about 40 million people, just 40 million. If you think about Lagos in Nigeria, I believe that the population in Lagos is more than 40 million, and I'm not even capping. So Canada, the people in Canada are just about the same number of people in just Lagos. Is amazing. So it's a big country with a very small amount of people. And these people are highly multicultural because Canada is immigrant friendly. There are a lot of people from different parts of the world living in Canada. And the major groups of people living in Canada are Indians, our Nigerian people, Chinese, Filipino. And I was amazed when I saw that the British live in Canada. Yeah, and their official languages are English and French. English is dominant in most provinces, and French is mostly spoken in Quebec and New Brunswick. They operate a public funded healthcare system, which is free for all PRs and citizens. Their education system is also free, public education for children of PR and citizens up to 18 years. And even their post-secondary education is one of the best in the world, and they have lots and lots of scholarships. Their system of government is very interesting. They are operating constitutional monarchy, just like the UK. In fact, the King of UK is the same monarch in Canada. So King Charles III, who is the king in the UK, is also the king in Canada. And they also operate a parliamentary democracy. Yeah, so those are the few key facts that you may want to know about Canada. And if we go ahead to look at the map of Canada, this is what the map of Canada looks like. You can see down below here are the major provinces. So you have British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, and you have the Atlantic provinces. These are the ones that are they are actually on the Atlantic Ocean, as you can see from here. So you have New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and Newfoundland and Labrador. And then at the top here, you have the three territories. So you have Yukon, Northwest Territories, and Nunavut. These are the all the provinces and territories currently present in Canada. Now, to look at, yeah, so these are the provinces I just mentioned. So Canada has got 10 provinces: Alberta, British Columbia, Manitoba, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland and Labrador, Ontario, Prince Edward Island, Quebec, and Saskatchewan. Then they have three territories: Nunavut, Northwest Territories, and Yukon. Okay, do you want to put in the chat box, is there anyone in this call this evening that has a family member in any of these provinces or territories? Anybody? Put it in the chat box. If you have a family member, a brother, a sister, a cousin, or even a friend in any of these provinces: Manitoba, Alberta, Newfoundland and Labrador, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Saskatchewan. That one is a mouthful. Sometimes it could be really difficult to pronounce it, Saskatchewan. I used to call my friend in Saskatchewan to teach me how do you pronounce it, Saskatchewan. Yeah. So, does any of us have a family member, cousins, friends in any of these provinces? Anybody? Okay. I don't think there's anybody for now. So we'll just go ahead. Now, what is Canada PR? That's the main reason why we are here tonight. What is Canada Permanent Residency? Also known as PR. It is a program where non-Canadians can become permanent residents, even from your home, without living inside Canada. So while you are in Nigeria, you can become a Canadian permanent resident. And for you to qualify for this opportunity, Canada has a point-based system that has been set by the federal government of Canada. The authority in charge of immigration is known as IRCC. So I think that is Immigration Regulation Commission of Canada, something like that. I may be wrong. I'm not very sure of the full meaning of that acronym right now. So the federal government sets the criteria, and each province or territory also sets their own point-based system, which is a criteria that can be used to determine who will qualify to become a permanent resident. And there are different routes to becoming a permanent resident in Canada. So we're going to look at each of them as quickly as possible. So the first one is the express entry route. This express entry route is managed by the federal government, and it is classified into three different routes. So the Canadian Express class, the Federal Skilled Worker class, and the Federal Skilled Trades Worker class. Now, I'm just going to explain each of these classes briefly. Now, the Canadian Experience class is actually for people who have lived in Canada for more than 1 year. So if you have lived in Canada, maybe as a student, so if you go to Canada to study, you will be able to qualify to apply for Canadian permanent residence via express entry under the Canadian Experience class, because you have studied in Canada. Same thing with if you have worked in Canada. As long as you have lived in Canada for more than 1 year, legally, on, when we say legally, on a right visa, not on visiting visa, except if your visiting visa allows you to stay for 1 year stretch, which is never the case. Most visiting visas will only allow you to stay for a maximum of 6 months at a stretch. So the only visas that allow you to stay in Canada for 1 year at a stretch will be the study visa or the work permit, or if you've gone as the spouse of a Canadian or a Canadian permanent resident. So that is the Canadian Experience class. The Federal Skilled Worker class is for you and I, anybody who is skilled. So, for instance, you're an accountant, you're a farmer, you're a professional, not just, do you understand? You have documents to prove that you have that skill. And the necessary organizations and authorities have given you a certificate that is tenable in anywhere in the world to prove that, yes, you are skilled in that profession. Then you can qualify to apply for Canadian permanent residence via the express entry through Federal Skilled Worker class. And then there is a Federal Skilled Trades Worker, and that is for those in vocation. So, for instance, a plumber, an electrician, hairdresser, bakers, even truck drivers, bricklayers, masons, and all those people in vocation, furniture workers, carpenters, yes, what do you call them now? Motor vehicle repairers, what do you call them? Mechanics, yes, all those skilled trades, you know, all those skilled trades, we call them vocation as well. They can also apply for Canadian PR as long as they have certificates to prove that they are skilled in those professions. The second pathway is a provincial nomination. This one is managed by each province. So Saskatchewan has its own Saskatchewan Immigration Nomination Program. Alberta has its own Alberta Immigration Pathway Program. And all those provinces have their own pathway programs managed by their own authorities. So they give the criteria for you to qualify for those provinces. And most of the time, they request for you to have a job offer or for you to have some kind of special skill that they are lacking. So they usually call it occupation in demand. So you see a place like Saskatchewan will tell you that they need accountants, or Alberta will tell you they need science teachers, or Nova Scotia will tell you they need plumbers or farmers. So that's usually the case with provincial nomination. The other route is the Atlantic Immigration Program. This is managed by just 4 provinces that are in the Atlantic region. If you remember, when I was showing you the map, I showed you 4 provinces that are in the Atlantic. Oh, okay. Ibitaye says, okay, I have friends in Quebec. Oh, yeah, nice. Quebec, yeah, that's one of the places that is predominantly French spoken citizens. Yes. Yes. So I was telling you about the Atlantic Immigration Program that is managed by the 4 provinces on the Atlantic Ocean. So those 4 provinces are Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Newfoundland and Labrador, and Prince Edward Island. They are beautiful places. It's just that they are on the Atlantic Ocean. So they manage their own special immigration program, this particular pathway, Atlantic Immigration Program. They manage it by themselves. Again, we have another route, which is the Rural and Northern Immigration Pathway. This is managed by different communities. So there are some communities, for instance, in Ontario, in Alberta, in Saskatchewan, there are some communities that manage their own immigration based on the occupation in demand. So if they are lacking some professionals, they come up and put it out that, okay, we need this so professionals, and they give them Canada PR so that they can come in and help their community. And then we also have the French speakers route. So if you are a French speaker, maybe you've lived in Togo or you've lived in any of those French speaking West African countries, you are able to write the French test, French language test, and pass it very well. You will be able to apply for Canada PR via the French speaker route. And last but not the least is the professional route, like I said earlier. So if you're a farmer, if you're a care worker, if you're a healthcare professional like a doctor, a nurse, occupational therapist, or what have you, physiotherapists, different healthcare professionals, or tech professionals, truck drivers, these are professions that are usually in hot demand in Canada. Okay, I just want to be sure you are still with me. Oh, Mrs. Ojo, you are welcome. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us in this webinar today. Yes, so now let's quickly look at the eligibility criteria. What and what do you need to have, or do you need to possess to be qualified to apply for Canada PR? The first major thing is education. Canada takes education seriously, but even at that, they allow that even if you have just high school, you can get into Canada with your PR. The only problem could come at the point where you're calculating your points. We'll get to where we will talk about the points. So at the point where you're trying to calculate your points must be able to meet the standard points that is required. So if your education is too low, then you may not meet up with the point. So that is why it's always a case of the higher your educational qualification, the more chances you have to be qualified. The next is age. Sadly so, the higher or the older you get, the more points you lose. In fact, from the point where you reach 45 years old, you will get just 0 for age. It's very funny. There are some provinces, however, that allow more than 45 years old applicants to apply. So a place like Saskatchewan, Alberta, most provinces still allow people from 45, even up until 55 to apply. For PR. So, but the basic thing is the older you get, the more points you lose and the more difficult it becomes for you to qualify. Again, the next criteria is work experience. So your years of work experience is very important because the more years of work experience you have, the higher your points. However, there are some provinces that will tell you that they want your qualification, what you have studied, to be the same thing as your occupation. So that invariably is saying that, for instance, you've studied accounting at your first degree or your second degree, whatever the case may be. The job you are doing must be accounting in that field. So it could be an auditor or whatever, as long as you're working as an accountant and you've studied accounting. So there are some provinces that have those clauses when it comes to work experience criteria. The next very important criteria is language skills. This is the one that most people dread. You know, Canada accepts English language and French language, but you have to write tests to prove that yes, you can speak the language up to the standard that is required. Now, I know some provinces bring down the requirements to make it easier for people to qualify. So, but when you're looking at the Federal Express Entry criteria, the standard for the English test and the French test is quite high. So most of the time they ask for you to have the best possible scores. So you want to look at having 8 in all the bands. So if you're doing English, you're doing speaking, reading, writing, and listening, you want to have at least 7.5 in each band. Again, the skills of the language, the points you get there is going to add up to whatever you have and help you if your age is high. So, for instance, if you're already 40 or you're 35 and you are able to clear your English test with 8 in each band, you will be able to scale through. If you're married, you have a spouse that does the same, you know, the person too can write English tests and have very good scores, then both of you will be able to scale through and have good points. And then the next criteria is also a job offer. Before now, Canada used to give points for job offers, but now they've stopped giving points for job offers. This started some months ago. I think it was in June that the points attached with job offers in Canada was scrapped. It was because people were, you know the way things are. People were paying, doing all manner of things to forge job offers, and they were seeing lots of fake job offer letters that were not real, and they had to stop accruing points to job offers from Canada. And then the next best one is family ties. So if you have a brother or a sister, a mother or father, grandmother, grandfather, cousin, in fact, a place like Manitoba accepts friends. If you are able to prove, remember that all these criteria, you must be able to prove with documents that your that what you are claiming is genuine. Okay. Yeah, so to go on, if we want to now, the steps to apply for Canada PR. The first thing that we need to do is to check your credential assessment. Your credential assessment is the first thing. Now, what happens at credential assessment level? At this level, your school, your highest qualification. So let's take an example. Let's say Romoke has a master's degree in finance, and our husband has a master's degree as well in which course now? Maybe civil engineering. Now, if both of them are going to Canada as a family, because Canada respects family. In fact, they want you to bring your family to Canada. They don't want you to come alone. If you have family, they want you to come with your family, because that is one way to prove that you're going to stay. They don't want you to come and leave as long as you are applying via the PR route. It is those who apply by visiting that they want to leave. They want you to leave. Or if you apply by study, they want you to leave if you're unable to convert your study to PR. But if you apply for PR, they don't want you to go. They want you to stay. So they want you to come with your family. So as I was saying, Romake has masters in finance. Her husband has masters in civil engineering. If we are going to start the step of the credential assessment part, the university where Romake got that master's from must send Romake's transcript to Canada. Now, there are different organizations in Canada that takes care of the credential assessment. We have WES, we have ICAS, there are so many of them. Depending on the subject you have studied, there are special organizations for special subjects, and there are even special organizations for the type of degree that you have. I know that WES does not usually assess HNDs. I don't know if they've changed that, but there was a time WES does not assess HND. So if you have HND, you have to use another organization, probably ICAS. So depending on what subject you've studied and the type of degree you have, we will be able to advise you that, okay, this is the organization that will assess your credential. And the way it is done is that your school has to send your transcript directly to that organization. They will not accept transcript from the applicant. So that is for credential assessment. Now, once that is done and your assessment arrives, then we do an eligibility check. Are you eligible? Based on your age, based on your work experience, based on the size of your family, based on the amount of money you have and all that, we do that eligibility check. And once we know that you're eligible, the next thing is to go and do your French or English test, or both, depending on your capabilities. And the next thing would be to create a profile for you in the Federal Express Entry Pool and the province that you intend to go. So for instance, if you're already above 35, we usually advise not to just stay with the Federal Express Entry alone, because the score of the Federal Express Entry is usually very high. And the reason why it goes high is because they look at everyone who is applying and pick an average of the scores of people. So take, for instance, 25-year-olds who are already living in Canada. Those of our friends who have sent their children to Canada at age 16, age 18, and they've finished their first degree, they've gone on to do their second degree, and now they're 23, 24, 25. They've worked for 2 years. By the time they apply for PR, their score is going to be very high because, one, they are young. Two, they have very high qualification. Three, they've lived in Canada. They are ticking all the boxes, you see. So for you, you are still in Nigeria, you're 40, you're 45. You see, your express entry profile has to be doubled. We have to double it and back it up with a provincial profile so that you can have a higher chance. And once we've done that and God blesses your application, you receive an invitation to apply. Once you receive an invitation to apply, at that point, you are 80% sure that you're going to get in if you know what you're doing. If you receive an invitation to apply, you have 80% chance that you're going to get in if you know what you are doing. It is usually a case of having a professional to handle your application so that you don't have wasted effort. Because trust me, the timeline for this whole processing sometimes could go as high as 1.5 years or 2 years. And the challenge usually comes from Nigerian universities sending transcripts to Canada. That's where the time usually, that's what usually takes time in the whole process. So once you've received the invitation to apply, the next thing is for you to put all the documents together, everything you have claimed while you are preparing your express entry profile or your provincial profile, everything you've claimed, the age you've claimed, the education qualification you've claimed, the work experience you've claimed, all those documents will now be submitted, and we will now apply for PR, either to the federal government or to the province of your choice. And if everything goes well, you are going to get a yes, and you will receive a confirmation of permanent residence saying that you have been accepted to come and start living in Canada as a permanent resident. Now, you can check your eligibility online with this Canada tool. I could drop it in the chat box for us. I could drop it in the chat box. Even you can easily check it by yourself and see if you, someone said zero Thor. I know that feeling. I know that feeling, but trust me, all hope is not lost. If you talk to us, we can really check it out. What about foresters? What do you mean by foresters? I don't understand. Do you mean farmers? Or I don't know what you mean by foresters. If you're talking about farmers, farmers are in high demand in Canada, and there is a special route for farmers. There is a special route for farmers. So I'm just going to drop the link in the chat box if you want to check your eligibility. Also, you can also check your CRS score. But of course, you can only do this if you already have your IELTS result, and if you already have your credential assessment. The purpose of the credential assessment is that you will, the organization assessing your credential will tell you that, okay, the master's you've done in Nigeria, or the master's you've done in France, or the master's you've done in Switzerland is the same thing with the master's in Canada. It's just an assessment to check if there is a gap in your the qualification you've received and the standard in Canada. Yes. He said, does it mean someone above 48 doesn't have a chance? Well, the chance is reduced. But again, remember I told you some provinces allow up to 55 years old. Some provinces allow up to 55 years old. And if you have at least a master's, it makes it easier. And then if you are able to work hard at your English test, or if you can speak French, then it will cover up for that. Don't worry, we're going to have a session for question and answers at the end, and I'll be able to answer all your questions. Now, let's look at the cost implication. I know many people will be like, I don't have money, I cannot do this. The truth is that Canada PR is the cheapest way to relocate legally. Please quote me anywhere that you met a lady that did a webinar and said Canada PR is the cheapest way to relocate out of Nigeria. Many people relocated out of Nigeria, or many people are relocating out of Nigeria via the study route. The study route is very expensive, trust me, especially if you're going with your family. For instance, if I use myself as an example, I left Nigeria with my family, my husband and my 2 children, and it was really expensive. And it was even then, I mean, almost 4 years ago now. You can imagine what it is now. What we paid 4 years ago, you have to multiply that figure by 5 now if you want to come to the UK as a student. If you want to relocate to the UK as a student, you will have to multiply that figure by 5. So let's assume then we spent 10 million. If you want to come to the UK now, you need to spend about 50 million. What am I saying? Yesterday, I still did a visa for a particular family coming to the UK on study route. And the money that I demanded to have, that they have to have in their account, is 60 million naira. So that is it. Relocating by study is expensive. PR is the cheapest way to relocate. Now, let's quickly look at a breakdown of what it looks like. So remember we talked about credential assessment, which is the first step. That will cost you about 200 to 300 Canadian dollars. A Canadian dollar is not as expensive as a US dollar. So if the US dollar is about 1,600 right now, Canadian dollar might be like 1,300, 1,400 naira. Yes, for $1 Canadian. So if you're going to do your credential assessment, you're going to pay your university for your transcript. I don't know what each university charges. You're going to pay your university for that. And you're going to pay the organization that is going to do the assessment. You're going to pay them between 200 to 300 Canadian dollars per person. Remember, if you're married, you're going with your spouse, the two of you need to assess your credentials, because then that is when your points will be good enough, because then they add the points together. The next one is the IELTS or French test. Somebody was telling me recently that IELTS is now about 250,000 in Nigeria. I'm not sure, so I have put here 150,000 naira plus for the IELTS of French test. If you can speak both, then it is good to do the two tests, so that also helps your point. And then the PR application fees, you pay this only when you have received an invitation to apply. Remember, I told you that once you receive an invitation to apply, you have 80% chance that you are going in. If you have a professional doing your job for you, once you have an invitation to apply, you are as good as gone. That is when Canada will demand for this 1,365 Canadian dollars per adult. Children pay a lower fee. And then your proof of funds is that money that needs to be in your account. Nobody's going to collect it from you. I'm going to show you the amount that is required for the size of your family. So this, as at July 7th, this is the updated amount of money that needs to be in your account if you're applying for Canada PR. So if it is only you, if you're single, you need to have in your account 15,263 Canadian dollars. So it means you're multiplying this 15,263 by 1,400 naira or whatever the case may be. Remember, that money sits in your account. Nobody collects it from you. Canada believes that when you come in, before you are able to get a job, you need to get a house. You need to furnish your house. You need to sometimes maybe buy a car that can help you move around. You need to fix your children in school. You're going to need this money for your first 6 months before you get a job and your salary begins to roll in. So this money is actually for your upkeep. In fact, for some of our clients who have gone, they requested to see an evidence of this money in their accounts at the border. So it is money that has to be in your account. It can't be forged. It has to be in your account. So if it's just husband and wife, just two people, is 19,001. If you have a child, husband and wife and a child, 23, and it goes on and on and on like that. If you are more than 7, let's assume that you have 6 children. So you're going to be having 40,392 plus 4,112 in your account, sitting there beautifully. So in total, we can help you plan it from start till you land in Canada. That way, you are able to look at, okay, what is my flight cost? Before I get a house, when I arrive, I need to get a Airbnb or whatever. We can help you look at all that. Right, now let's quickly look at the required documents. I mean, I'm sure you must have picked one or two with all the things I have said so far. So definitely you need your international passport. You can't start the processing without your international passport, because even your credential assessment, the organization that is going to assess your credential will ask for your passport number and your passport details. So your international passport is the first document you must have. And then your language test result and letter of reference from your employer. This is very, very important. Everywhere you have worked for the past 10 years, if you're claiming up to 10 years work experience, you have to present a letter of reference from that employer. We tell you what and what details need to be in that letter. That letter is very, very important. A lot of people get refusals because of letter of reference. Because trust me, if you don't take anything away from this webinar tonight, I want you to take this one thing I want to say away. This thing I want to say, I want you to take it away. You have to be able to prove that what you are given is true, because Canada is going to check. Canada will check. A person who is 57 years old has a chance if the person is in what do you call it, occupation in demand in a particular province. So if the person's profession is an occupation in demand, the person has high scores in English, the person has high qualification, nothing less than a master's, and then this person's spouse as well has nothing less than a master's. So in that case, yes, the person has a chance. I mean, like I said, we're going to have question and answer session at the end of the webinar. We're almost at the end. So, and then you have to show evidence of your income, your pay slips. I mean, again, if you are running business, evidence of those income, and then your bank statement where the proof of fund is seated has to be presented as well. Of course, evidence of your source of income. Police certificates, very important. You're going to be asked to provide police certificates of all the countries where you have lived in for more than 6 months at a go. And the medical test, once you get an invitation to apply, you will be required to go and do a medical test. They usually have their own designated hospitals for the medical test. And then your marriage certificate and birth certificates of your children. So, how can we help you as Golden Knights? We can help you do your eligibility check. We can guide you with the credential assessment, guide you to also prepare for your IELTS and write your test. We can help you with your profile creation on the Federal Express Entry Pool and Provincial Pool. We can help you to, get access to our trusted RCIC partners. We can give you a full documentation review before you submit. We do all that for you, and we keep updating you with everything that is changing in Canada, because these countries, they change things a lot. Right. Thank you very much for listening. Everyone has left the webinar. It's just one more person here. So I do not think anyone has a question because there's nobody else in the webinar, just one more person. All right. Thank you all for coming, and thank you very much.